Okay, so going ahead, we're going to go ahead and test um, our mastery prompt. So I started doing these videos maybe about 2, 3 weeks now. I've actually been working on this prompt since February. As soon as I landed in Korea, I just for some reason decided this is what I wanted to do. Um, so even though I was in the hotel from January, I started working on this from middle of February, just about. We're in April, so this has been a long journey to this moment. Essentially, this prompt should now be done. It should have enough structures in place to where if it fails, it's not critical and will actually prompt you to kind of reload. But failure shouldn't be possible outside of memory retention. The thing about it is that it takes a lot to load these interactive quizzes. I'm requiring it to load 20 up to 50 dynamic questions that are non-repeatable, that are a deep dive story-based quiz. So sometimes, and I cannot control it, it exceeds the AI memory capacity to where it fails to load completely. In that particular case, it is a simple reload. It's nothing critical that stops or hinders the process or it becomes extremely frustrating. Um, in my testing, I've been jumping around and I probably exceeded capacity once. So, and it gave me an option to reload it, and that fixed it, and I haven't had that issue again. So going into it, I think I am about 90% of the way there. I know how to fix the memory issue, but it would require me to lessen the load on the AI. Require me to either have it do simpler questions, which instead of the story-based deep dive questions that are related to the industry, which is a lot of thought because it has to go through and be like, what can I apply this CompTIA Security Plus to in the healthcare, in office situation, and in a various realistic scenario. It takes a lot of memory to do that. I could reduce that capacity, or instead of 20, I could cut it in half to 10. Instead of 50, I can cut it in half to 25. If you saw my older videos, it used to be 100. It failed more often trying to load the 100 than anything else. So I split it into two parts, but then personally, I just didn't want a part one on the test and a part two on a test. So I decided to just get rid of part two altogether. So the 50 is loading, but memory is definitely an issue. Overall, it's a simple process. You drop in your document, hit enter. You're going to get the directive acknowledgement from Gemini. So it's letting you in whatever capacity. I've seen this short, I've seen it more detailed, but it's essentially going to tell you it's ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and begin session and your session number. Now, typically, most people will start with the first one. We're going to be jumping around. So let's begin session 10. Now, I did this because sometimes you might feel like I don't really want to go back over the standard concepts of the security concepts. Maybe you want to go into a deep dive into an area that you feel you're weak on. So somebody might not want to start with 1, they might want to start with 10. Someone might not want to start with 10, they might want to start with 15. Or you might want a certain order. Let me go in this area first. Let me go back into that area. Let me go. So you're going 10, 15, 6, 7, 12, 1, and jumping around. So I wanted to make it where you weren't limited to start in my order. Also to that, there's an interactive quiz at the end of every session. Somebody might feel they got this concept down pat and doesn't want to take the session 10 quiz. So they want to go to the session 11 quiz. They have the information for session 11 in their head already, and they don't need to go over that concept, but they want to check. Maybe you finished all the sessions and you're just now jumping around for mastery checks. So you're going to do session 11 test, session 5 test, session 2 test. So I'm creating an environment where you can be ADHD like me, and trying to keep that environment as simple as possible. So one of the main things, semantic encryption. So this is your subject, a definition of what a semantic encryption is, what the asymmetric encryption is. You have your real world scenario that ties into the CompTIA field, into the computer field. So it could be healthcare, it could be anything else, but it's all going to be a tie-in in the real world. And one of the biggest things exam needs to know, symmetric encryption, exactly what you should understand for the CompTIA Security Plus, because that's what this is at the end of the day. It's a CompTIA Security Plus training. So breaking it down into those three categories really gives you an opportunity to learn about it without it being overwhelming. This would have been a page in a book and would have gone into it very detailed. So I always say leverage your all the stuff that you have. That's fine. That's recommended. Use as many resources because you're paying for this exam and you want to make sure you pass. I'm feeding my fish this information and I'm trying not to make it overly inundated with information that just becomes complex. Keep it simple, stupid. So your real world, your definition, because you want to know that and what you need to know on the exam. On top of that, we also have a deeper dive. If you've seen the earlier video, you see how short those were. I've actually added more concepts to each session. So this is one of those things that's really driving into the memory. Over here, you kind of see my mouse highlighting those things. You see how slow my old computer is. My other computer broke, if you saw that video. I'm currently waiting for the parts to rebuild it. But this is your concepts related to the directive that was created. So these are how it's taking that directive source and applying it to create this. On top of that, you're going to have a framework iteration. So this is your overall structure of how all of the blockchains ties into asymmetric encryption, how it all comes together with hashing. So a big iteration for that session of how everything regarding that concept kind of pulls in. And then, of course, you have your acronyms, your definitions at the end, because sometimes it gets lost in the sentences. So it's nice to be able to kind of pull it out at the end and really just take a quick look, quick refresher for what they are, because one of the things you're going to have to know is what the abbreviations are, what the acronyms are for. PKI, you'll see it in the book, and now you have to remember public key infrastructure. And when you see PKI as on the answer sheet as a choice for A, B, C, D, you're going to be like, okay, what is that? When you see MDM, you're like, oh my gosh, what is the management council? That's not what MDM stands for. See, that's why you have it. I tend to I tend to be forgetful. I know this stuff. When it comes under pressure, I got it. Now, don't got it. Comfort of my own home, don't got it. So let's begin mastery. Now, let's begin mastery is your general prompt at the end of any session. That's going to go ahead and start the quiz. If you want to be specific, let's begin mastery for session 2. Even though I'm in session 10, it will jump there. So you can put your session number if you want to jump to a specific quiz, or let's begin mastery will just be the quiz for this session. And we're going to have the AI kind of loading through everything. I recognize that the coding has to be, I can tell whether it passes or fails just looking at around how many lines of code there are. If there's around close to 300-400, then I know that it loaded properly. If it's less, then I know that it didn't load. So that's one thing I'm kind of wary about. 298 screams red flag to me. Of course, the lines of code are going to be also associated with the questions that they choose to use. So you could have more lines because of that, and you could have less, but that screams failure. But we're about to see right now. For the mastery attempt, so this is a quiz attempt 1. If I type let's begin mastery again, it's going to be quiz attempt 2. It's going to have a stop feature that essentially clears out this quiz history, reloads in a new interactive quiz, gives you completely new questions, answer scenarios. It's all dynamic, it's all randomized, and it's never supposed to be repetitive. You're never supposed to see this question 1 ever again. And that is why you have this huge load on memory utilization, the token utilization for the AI. But I think that's such a core feature, I really don't want to take it out to save memory. I'd rather someone deal with the nuance of having to type let's begin mastery again, and then the quiz loading. Now, you have your choices. One thing definitely want to be wary of, just like the real interactive quizzes, if you click an answer and then hit the down arrow trying to scroll, you could unintentionally swap your answers. So just definitely be careful of that. I'm just going to pick random answers now just to make sure that we get through this so I don't read everything through. But you'll see that each question is a deep dive scenario based. It's not a straightforward definition based question. So you really got to kind of use your brain to think through what each of these are. And I'm hoping that because you are not getting the same question, it's not a memory thing. You're not just remembering what the answer is. You will know what the answer is. And if you take the quiz again, you won't be able to just hop in here and be like, oh, yeah, question 13 was B. No. I'm like, well, and then I'm not clicking it. Yeah, so you won't be able to kind of cheat your way through. You have to know what the questions are to decide. Now, at the end of the quiz, these are 2 features that took me a while to kind of get right. You're going to have actually 3 features to get right. So the first feature is this exam button. I shouldn't have clicked that last one. But this submit button is going to be disabled until all answers are selected. If you skip a question, even by accident, you will not be able to submit this exam. You have to answer all questions before being able to proceed. So now that all questions are answered, I could submit. Now going back into it, every question, right or wrong, you are going to be told it was incorrect, what is the correct answer, and an explanation of why the answer was right or wrong. So you have an idea of whether or not where's the right? Man, I couldn't get one right. There we go. You have an idea of whether or not you got the answer right, and you have a reference to it as well. So I definitely want to, again, memory utilization, keep these particular features, but you can see all that's loaded into it, why it's such a dynamic quiz. So going through, hey, I got a hat trick, got 3 in a row. Going through it, this is going to be something that's going to be great for your reference. Now, I scored poorly. This is going to be another feature. One is going to be this copy results to chat. I might rename that, but right now that's what I'm using. This copy results to chat is because the Gemini portal, as explained in other videos, doesn't have access to the Canvas portal because of security, as I'm finding out online. So we need a way for the chat to be able to see what you got right, what you got wrong, what category you were getting them wrong in. So that way it can create a failure log to go ahead and retest you as you continue forward through your sessions on this information. So if you got 13 out of 20 wrong, then you need a big refresher. And this is what we're going to address. So going through, we have that copy to chat feature. You click copy, and then you simply paste it. Additionally, if you'd like to keep this for a record of your own history, unfortunately, because of the Canvas program, we can't keep it within this history. As you go through, the stop feature is going to clear this interactive exam out of the memory. So this way we can save on our memory utilization. It'll clear the history and then start a new interactive quiz. So we're going to lose the feature to go back into our history. So if you do want it, you simply click download. It'll download a text file, and the text file can be used. So this is my text file from session 1 as I was testing through. The correct answer, my answer, why it's wrong. This is now our session 10, and it's going to have the same type of information. Now, structurally, I could go ahead and set up how this text file looks, but I think overall it's very straightforward. This is all you need: what the question was, what the scenario was, what your answer was, what's the correct answer, and why it's right or wrong. I think that's as straightforward as you need that to be. Also to that, we have our copy results. This one, there was a problem when running your code. See, remember I said if I see codes under 300, I know that there was something wrong. So right now, this is a failure on my write text to clipboard. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to address that because I have seen this failure come up before. And I want to address why it failed. Blocked because of permission policy applied to the current document. Oh, so this was security related. So this might be interesting. All right. Well, that's why we're going through this document together, to make sure. All right. What it's supposed to copy when it works is, all right, fixing the error. This one is an issue because what happens when I reset is it has a stop directive that clears the history of your exam. You clear the history of the exam, it reloads brand new data. Now I'm essentially getting a brand new quiz and I don't have that historical data. Now I could, for the most part, drag my downloads in here and have access to that, which will be applied to failure log. So I still have a method of kind of going back and double checking the failure log, making sure that it that the information is applied. Wow, I got all these freaking information. Yeah, your performance indicates a significant struggle with mechanics of symmetric versus asymmetric application. So this is a nuance that I'm currently still working on, but as you can see, it's not a crippling nuance. So I can still download my history. We can still apply that to your log to kind of keep track. If you don't copy the failure log, let's say I didn't download the history and the failure log crashed, so I don't have any data from my session 10 quiz, and I'm not in the mood to retake that quiz. Screw that. I just did it. Well, in this particular situation, session 10 won't make it on the failure log. There's currently no failures. Well, as you progressively go forward, if that happened for all sessions, then essentially we will have session 19, which is a overview of your failures. That's why we want to check. We want to keep track. We want to keep track of your history of failures, because session 19 is going to include that test. That test particularly is going to be your 10 question tier test based on failure history. You didn't keep any logs at all to the entire process. Session 19 will be a health check based on the highest weighted questions on the CompTIA exam. So session 18 will be a overview test of all sessions, while session 19 will be based on the highest weighted questions, 20 questions of the exam. I'd prefer to have someone go ahead and take that test based on what they failed, what they're weak at. So it's a nice refresher at the end versus a health check of going over what you're weak in and making sure you knock out those nuances. And of course, if you're weak in this area, that area, you could recommend the sessions that you need to go back and review in order to um, get better at those subject matters. So definitely little nuances, little counters that are put in place to keep track through the process. But I'm really hoping as I progress through this process that I'm going to address the security feature right now to see if there's another way I can do the copy paste without it violating policy. But that was my fix. And then asked it to write my directive, and then created it, and then tested it, and had issues with it, and came back, and now it's like it's working partially. So we want to get it working perfectly. But overall, I hope this was informative. I hope you guys like what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. This is a process, and for some reason, I'm just really addicted to seeing this get right. And get to a point where it's 100% functional with no failures. Memory utilization, token utilization, I'm not seeing a way around that without Gemini becoming a better product. Now, I am going to go on ChatGPT once I am confident that the Gemini works. It's better to work with one AI platform than 10. So once I'm confident in the Gemini platform, I'll be going ahead and swapping the directive. It's only a few lines in my code, actually, in my directive to switch it to ChatGPT. But we'll go over there and see if maybe that has a better internal structure regarding memory utilization. So overall, thank you for sitting with me this long, but gotta go and gotta keep working on this.